In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. My dear friends, my dear brothers and sisters in Christ, this is the continuation of the previous video about the situation in Ukrainian Orthodoxy, and especially the problems in the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, the recently recognized branch of Ukrainian Orthodoxy, which used to be the independent Church of Kiev Patriarchate since 1992, but in 2019 received the official recognition from the Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew. I was the priest of this church for 7 years, but several weeks ago I made my decision that I leave this church structure, that I leave the Omophorion of Metropolitan Epiphanius, and I am now under the Omophorion of Patriarch Philaret, who remains the true Orthodox Patriarch. And I did it because of many reasons, because the situation in the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, as I call it for simplicity, the Church of Epiphanius, I don't mean that this church belongs to Metropolitan Epiphanius or that the other branch of Ukrainian Orthodoxy, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, belongs to Metropolitan Onufrios. I just say so in order to simplify the understanding for the Western people who are not acquainted so well with these different hierarchies. So I just call these churches by the names of their leaders, but it doesn't mean that one is better than the other or some kind of that. These churches have valid sacraments. Their priests are true priests with valid consecrations. But the situation in the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, the Church of Epiphanius, is very bad. For 7 years already, almost nothing was done, and we don't even see that any good things are beginning. So for a long time it was disturbing me. And finally, I decided that I cannot stay in this structure any longer, and I decided to tell the truth. So I have written a big text in Ukrainian. I recorded 3 videos in Ukrainian, and now I am recording a video in English for my Western friends to see. So I kindly ask you to look at this video and share it among your friends, and especially maybe share it with some officials of your region and your country. Maybe together we can somehow influence the change of the situation in the church. So in the previous video, please look it up. I leave the link in the description. I described the situation briefly between several branches of Ukrainian Orthodoxy. Then I talked about Metropolitan Epiphanius, who he is, and about his not very good level of organization skills and education. I spoke on the very small number of Ukrainian priests and their bad education, lack of formation, that we almost don't have monks among us, and it is very hard to find and create monasteries, that our seminaries and spiritual academies also cannot cooperate very well with other theological educational institutions around the world, that our foreign parishes, Ukrainian foreign parishes, are abandoned, and Ukrainians who are abroad are left without spiritual care, and that the chaplain service, which is greatly needed, in time of war. It is neglected, it's very poorly organized, and this way we almost don't have Orthodox chaplains in our military. Well, we have them several decades maybe, but they cannot cover they cannot do the necessary job, they cannot treat all the soldiers who need this spiritual treatment. Of course, one can say that the Church of Epiphanius is very young, it received recognition only recently, and so on and so on, but I believe that 7 years is time long enough in order even to make foundations to some changes. And these foundations was not made for all these 7 years. And I will remind you that though the church was recognized 7 years ago, but it existed for already 30 years. The independent church in Ukraine. And of course there were some problems, but a lot of things have been done, and now we see that nothing new was made in the last 7 years, when the church already had recognition, when it already established the communication with Greek church, with ecumenical patriarchate, and when the state did all it could to promote the Church of Epiphanius. It became a kind of state church. Now I'm going to speak about the conflict and even religious war that erupted in Ukraine between the Church of Epiphanius and the Church of Onufrius. The Church of Onufrius, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, it is considered like a part of Russian Church. It is half true, half not. Indeed, this church, Church of Onufrius, is the continuation of the Russian Orthodox Church that had its parishes in Ukraine. But in 1990, this church received the semi-autonomous status, and the documents of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church declares that it must strive to gain more independence. So it is like not yet an Orthodox church, but no longer a part of Russian church. It is something in between. So this status, it was temporarily, but due to political reasons, it remains still up to this day. But, and indeed, in this church, unfortunately, there are very, very many pro-Russian bishops and priests who established strong connections with Russia, and who had like always traveled there, communicated with them, and so on and so on, and even who believed in these destructive ideas that Russians are like older brothers of Ukrainians, and that we should be like a kind of one nation and perhaps even one state. So all these terrible things there, they were declared. But when the big war began 4 years ago, many of the bishops, including Onufrius himself, who was rather pro-Russian, but Onufrius himself and his surroundings, they changed their view on Russia. They understood what kind of a monster is that. They condemned Russian aggression, and they tried to gain the independent status from Russian Church. But unfortunately, most of the bishops of the Church of Onufrius, they were brought up in this spirit that like the center is there in Moscow, not there in the heavenly Jerusalem, but there in Moscow. And they are afraid to make this radical step, to just break up with Moscow after all these decades, and say that we don't want to have anything in common with you. Unfortunately, that they are afraid, and that is what makes this church puts it under pressure of the state. So in some ways, yes, Onufrius and his surroundings are to blame for the situation in the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, yes, but it is not the main problem. For many, many years, the Church of Onufrius, it was like a state church. So now the Church of Epiphanius is the state church, but when until 2014 we had a rather pro-Russian government of President Viktor Yanukovych, who fled after the revolution of 2014. He fled from Ukraine. The Church of Onufrius was the state church, and it benefited from the state, and so on and so on. But now the situation changed, and now under the influence of state propaganda, that the Church of Onufrius is the Russian church, is the church of the occupants, it is an enemy church, it is like the church of the KGB, and so on. It's called by all these nasty bad names in the media. This propaganda is aimed to make the patriotic part of the society to hate the Orthodox Church of Onufrius, and now the policy is to take away forcibly as many parishes from them as possible and give them to the Church of Epiphanius. So the war is declared here inside Ukraine. It is called the war against the Moscow Patriarchate. The Church of Onufrius, it is considered as the cause of all our bad things, and that they are enemies and agents of Russia, and so on and so on. And indeed, as I told previously, some bishops unfortunately are still feel sympathy to Russia and believe that this war must be stopped not by just victory of Ukrainians over Russians, but some kind of peace agreements and so on and so on. I remind you that peace is not absence of conflict. Peace is presence of justice. Peace can be achieved only when our suffering of Ukrainian people is stopped, and the evil and the enemies who cause this evil are punished. But not everyone understands that. Some of us want to have peace above all costs, and that the war must stop, people must stop dying, and so on and so on and so on. And some feel very sympathetic concerning the Russians. As I said, that is the part partly that is why bad things are happening to the Church of Onufrius at the moment, because they don't declare themselves patriotic enough. So that is the problem. But on the other hand, it is the policy of the state. Epiphanius is the best candidate to lead the state church, because he is not very clever, not very educated. He is of weak character. He can be controlled easily. He is very modernist. He supports all these modern issues, and the Church of Onufrius is more conservative. And as I spoke in my previous video, now everything that is conservative, that is true Orthodox, it is considered that it is rooted in Russia ideology. So that is really the problem. But of course, that does not justify the evil actions against the Church of Onufrius. The parishes are forcibly taken away, and usually it is done illegally. Some parishes, the religious communities, sometimes they vote to leave the Church of Onufrius and join the Church of Epiphanius. But mostly it happens without the priest, so the priest remains with his church, where he was ordained. Some of the priests go to Epiphanius, but not all of them, and not the majority of them. People sometimes decide that they go, and then the Church of Epiphanius, the hierarchy, faces the problem, because they don't have enough priests. They receive new parishes, new people, but usually one priest can can serve in 2, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 parishes. And how can a priest completely devote himself to his service and to pastoral care for people if he appears in his church only once a week, or sometimes even once in 10 days, or once in a fortnight? It cannot be. You know, it's not the USA where people work all the week and only gather for the short liturgy on Sunday, and the rest of the time the church is closed. In Ukraine it's a little bit different. The priest, if he wants to have a real strong Orthodox community, he must be present in his church every day or every other day. He must celebrate the liturgy as often as he can. He must speak to people, be with them together, help them in their needs. He cannot just go somewhere and return once a week. This kind of community will be very weak. It will be very formal. And that is what happens because Epiphanius cannot supply enough priests for all these parishes. But sometimes even worse things happen. Sometimes, for example, there is a beautiful old church in a small town or a village that belongs to Church of Onufrius. And Church of Epiphanius, for example, local priest or a local bishop wants to seize it for himself. So what is done? Some people who don't have any relation to this church, but live in this same area, they are gathered by perhaps some state activists and offer to sign a declaration that they don't want to have a Russian church in their town or village. So people who don't even go to church, people who don't know what is Orthodoxy about, what are the peculiarities of the church hierarchy, they don't understand it completely, they are offered to sign this declaration. And then patriotic people, young activists who don't necessarily have to be Orthodox, they can be more like secular or patriots, or they can be even Greek Catholics sometimes. They are brought from other parts of Ukraine, they are brought to this village, and then they forcibly take the church away from the parishioners of the Church of Onufrius, and sometimes without the necessary documents. Sometimes the documents are forged later in order to justify it. So sometimes they do it completely illegally with the help of the authorities, and of course that the authorities support the state Church of Epiphanius, and the police is guarding those who are attacking the church and not those who are protecting it. And we often see all the videos are now shared on the internet. We see that it is often with the use of force, with the use of violence, sometimes with the use of arms. Sometimes soldiers who are, for example, on rotation, who are resting after heavy fights on the front line, they are brought to these let's say battlefields for the churches, and they are said, oh, all right guys, look, we are fighting the Russian aggression over there, and here we have the agents of Moscow wearing cassocks, so you should go and throw them out of their church. And the military men, sometimes they don't understand what is going on. And sometimes they are just, you know, after these terrible combats and very hard conditions of Ukrainian military, since I'm a chaplain, I know very well what it is like there. People have a lot of aggression inside. They have a lot of stress. And for them, it is often comfortable to let this aggression outside and aim it at some kind of enemy. And that is that's what is done. But you see, and even, you know, sometimes even worse things happen, because sometimes the chaplains are brought to seize these churches. So what they say, that a chaplain is like a military priest, so he is the most patriotic. He comes with the soldiers. They go inside the church, the church of Onufrius. They throw the people who don't want to agree on that, and they say, we are Ukrainians. We pray for the victory of Ukraine. Our center of our church is in Kiev, not in Moscow. We are not related to Moscow in any way. But they are thrown out of their church. And then this church mostly, very often, it remains empty, or there's very few people, because these activists who seize the church, they don't remain there to go to this church and pray. They go to their homes, and sometimes they don't go to any church at all. And so this church is often closed. And the Orthodox communities that used to pray there, they find another place. For example, it can be a small house or even a room for rent. They organize a church there inside and gather there. And you can see a lot of pictures of people, like many people, many dozens of people praying inside a rented room because their church was taken away by people of Epiphanius. You see that? And you know, this so-called war on the Moscow Patriarchate, it is lost already. It is lost because for a true Orthodox Church, being under pressure, especially under pressure of some kind of secular government or a regime, it is a natural way of being. The Church started 2000 years ago. It started from being under oppression. First under oppression of the Jews, then after under oppressions of the Romans. Later in different countries it could be under oppression of Muslims or someone else, or sometimes Orthodox were prosecuted in Catholic countries. Catholics were prosecuted, for example, in England in the new time, and so on and so on. So being under pressure, and in times of communism in the 20th century, the church was prosecuted in all the states where communism was established, this red regime. So being under pressure is the normal state of the church. It only makes the church stronger, it makes it grow, produce new saints, new martyrs. So when pressing the church of Onufrius here in Ukraine, the Ukrainian government is actually making it stronger. And it is the big problem. It is the things these people don't understand. They are only making it stronger. They are producing new saints, new martyrs, and draw new people to themselves. So to the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, Church of Onufrius, nothing can be done by force. So actually the nation is more and more divided on the religious principle. It used to be divided on the principle of language, because most of people in Ukraine speak Ukrainian language, but there are some who speak Russian. And sometime earlier, it occurred a real division and real conflicts on the ground of language. Now we have this conflicts on the ground of the Orthodox communities, and it is indeed very hard, and it weakens the Ukrainian society. It doesn't stronger it, but it weakens this church. So the problem, also we had one event approximately 2 years ago. There was a very beautiful monastery here in Ukraine, in Kiev. And this monastery, it was the monastery of Onufrius. It was built maybe 15 years ago. in time when the Church of Onufrius still was like a state church, as I have said earlier, in times of President Yanukovych before the revolution of 2014, the Church of Onufrius enjoyed all the benefits from the state. But they built this monastery, very beautiful monastery, but there were problems with documents. And at that time, nobody actually cared about that because it was a state church. Now, when the Church of Epiphanius is a state church and they can do what they please, they said that this is not, this building must not be there at all. It doesn't have proper documentation, so it must be destroyed. And the state destroyed this monastery. They didn't try to renew the documents. They even didn't try to give this monastery to Epiphanius. They just destroyed it. And Epiphanius remained silent about it. And many Ukrainian patriots were shouting, "Look, we destroyed the center of the Moscow agents." So can you believe that these people are so unorthodox, they are so un-Christians, that they even don't want to see the truth? You see, the Church of Epiphanius being recognized by Ecumenical Patriarch, it of course recognizes all the sacraments and consecrations and ordinations of the church, not only of church in Ukraine of Onufrius, but also of the Russian church in Russia. Of course, the Russian church is working for our enemy at the moment. It's working for the regime of Putin, but its sacraments are valid. And no one in the world, even the Roman Catholic Church, questions the grace of the sacraments given by the Russian Church. So we can like that or we cannot like that. It can sound patriotic or unpatriotic, but the sacraments are valid. It is the position of the entire church in the world. So, for example, if a priest leaves the Russian church and decides to join the Ukrainian church, he will be accepted without reordination. It means that the sacraments are valid. And for Epiphanius, Patriarch Cyril is the same patriarch as Bartholomew. By grace, it is the Orthodox teaching. People may agree or disagree, but it is the way it is. So if a church is destroyed here, it means that it is a satanic act. It's act of destruction of a sacrament. And Epiphanius remains silent about it. It means that he actually does not believe in the sacraments that are that occur there in this church. So can you imagine that? Also, we saw many situations when the big churches were seized by force with the use even of firearms. For example, it happened the last year in the city of Cherkasy. There was a big church of Saint Michael the Archangel, and the battle for this church was terrible. And now it remains empty. It is a very, very big cathedral, and it's just empty. They conduct their liturgy every Sunday, but maybe 5 or 10 people can come, and it's almost nothing. Also, this year in the city of Chernivtsi, in the western Ukraine, there was they tried to seize. There was this action to seize the cathedral of Chernivtsi, with the use of activists who were actually not even from that town. They came from other cities. The police helped to seize this church, but the local bishop Meleti of Chernivtsi, he called for help, and about 2,000 people who were actually praying in this cathedral, who were the part of the community, they came out and they pushed the attackers out of their church, and they defended it. And even the police and the state authorities could not do anything about it. So it was a big scandal, and you can see these videos online. But that is the way it happened. So everyone who calls the Church of Onufrius the agents of Moscow, I want to ask you, do you really believe that all these 2,000 of people who came through to defend their church, do they receive the salary from the Russian security service or Russian activists or something? Or they are fed from Moscow? Do you really believe that? I believe that in Ukraine now we have two parallel hierarchies, and it is not only my position. It is the position of many Ukrainian priests and bishops who are sane, who are patriotic, but they remain Orthodox. We have two hierarchies. We have two branches of Orthodoxy. And we cannot oppress the Church of Onufrius because we just cannot. It would be impossible to just too many people support them. We cannot just destroy all these people. It cannot be done even practically. But due to all these events, the reputation of the Church of Epiphanius in the world is destroyed. I communicate with other Orthodox who are in Greece, in Western Europe, in the United States, and they all tell me that we don't want to do anything with the Church of Epiphanius because of these events. And even Patriarch Bartholomew was shocked when he saw the video from Cherkasy. You can look it up online, and it is indeed terrible. You can see people who are with guns shooting inside the church. The Church of Epiphanius now its reputation is destroyed. Patriarch Bartholomew was shocked. He was furious. He said that I gave you this recognition of the church in Ukraine in order to unite the Orthodoxy, and your actions are dividing it even further. And there were some bishops in the Ecumenical Patriarchate who said that we should revoke this tomos, that we should deny our recognition because it did not achieve the necessary goal we hoped for. You can look up videos on internet when you see the priests of Epiphanius who openly declare that the Church of Onufrius, it is like a public toilet. There is one video where a priest in his church says that. He said, you should not feel sorry for that church like of Moscow Patriarchate because it is nothing more than a public toilet. You can see a very famous in media chaplain Sergei Dmitriev, who is talking to a journalist Yanina Sokolova on TV, and they both are saying that there is no real Holy Communion in the Church of Onufrius, and they are calling it some kind of trash. Indeed, in Ukrainian they said "якась хрінь." Some kind of trash. So this means that these people, they are entirely unorthodox. They see it as a political war, but for them the enemy of the church is another branch of the church, not secularism, not atheism, not the sodomites, not those who promote abortions, not the Western international foundations like Soros and others. They are not the enemies for them. The enemies are other Orthodox. So, and that is the great tragedy of Ukrainian Orthodoxy today. And you know, even when in time when the Church of Onufrius was the state church and Kiev Patriarchate was not supported, almost. Kiev Patriarchate had many churches, but none of them was taken by force from them. Sometimes there were exceptions. For example, in 1999, there was an attack on Patriarch Filaret, who visited the city of Mariupol, which is now under Russian occupation, and in the first month of war, it was almost totally destroyed. So Patriarch Filaret back in 1999 came there in order to bless a cross on the place where a church had to be built, but he was attacked by people, and there was even threat to his life. but this was not actually blessed by the local bishop. These were the crazy people who believed in this idea of one nation with the Russians, and that Filaret is a schismatic, and they attacked him. But it was only like one. It was a terrible situation, but it was only one. And now we see such kinds of attack occurring almost every month. So after that, after these actions, nobody will unite with Epiphanius. His church will not be recognized anywhere in the world. Patriarch Bartholomew tried to persuade the Bulgarian and Romanian church to recognize Epiphanius, but they refused. They refused even to celebrate with him if he mentions the name of the Epiphanius during the liturgy. It happened recently. And in Ukraine, the unity of these two Orthodox churches will not be possible in any way until Epiphanius remains the head of one of these branches. And so they destroyed the reputation themselves. Also, the next thing I want to mention, it is connected to the previous topic of the level of our clergy. In times of COVID, the churches that are under jurisdiction of Epiphanius were closed, and many liturgies were cancelled and not conducted. It means that not only the people were afraid to go out and go to church, priests themselves were afraid. In Ukraine, there were no such harsh laws that you could not exit the building in time of the lockdown. People just didn't care that much. Of course, many of them were afraid. They were afraid. They wore these masks on their face and so on and so on. Tried to avoid contacts with others, but there were many people who just did not care. Did not consider this threat to be a real one. Of course, it is a sensitive topic for many people, because in times of COVID, this disease was very hard. It took a lot of lives. Many people died. Many lost their loved ones. I understand that completely. But as a faithful and true believing Orthodox Christian, I understand that there is nothing more powerful than God. And if we believe that in the church we have the true sacraments, that we have the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ in the chalice of the Holy Communion, then we believe that no disease, no virus, and nothing else in the world can be stronger than that. And the sad thing is that in Ukrainian church, the Church of Epiphanius, many priests refuse to believe that. They say we have to be careful, we should not put our lives at risk, and so on and so on. They did not baptize people. They did not celebrate the liturgy. They didn't do anything on this